Is Astrology with Yasmin.
Hello everybody out there all over the big wide world. It's Yasmin Boland here, coming to you live and direct from my office in London, England, all over the internet. Where are you? How are you? Give me a call. It'd be lovely to speak to you. I feel like I've been on broadcasting something all day today. I started with my chanting that I do it in the morning, then I'm doing a challenge, and now here we are with Unity Online Radio. And let me tell you how to call in if you'd like to call in. The number to call is 816-251-3555. That is 816-251-3555. You just have to tell Louis, he'll answer the phone, your birth date, your time, date and place of birth, and what you'd like to talk about, and we will speak to you about that. I have a really exciting guest today, and oh my God, it's so topical. Today I'm going to be speaking to an amazing astrologer that I really love as a person as well. Her name is Alex Trenoweth, and she and I are going to be speaking about probably the most topical thing in the world right now, which is Harry, Meghan and Oprah. Harry, Meghan and Oprah. Specifically, we are going to be looking at actually, because what Alex is, her kind of real speciality is the astrology of adolescence, which is a subject very close to my heart because I have a 14-year-old son. And in fact, Alex would like to today, she'll be looking at, in some ways, what happened to Harry, which happens to everybody at the age of around about 12, which is called the Jupiter return, how that affected the rest of his life, how it's even affected the fact that he and his wife Meghan and Oprah have all got together this week for a chat. You know, really an unprecedented chat. So if you're into the royals, that's great. If you're not into the royals, then I'm sorry, because this is going to be quite a kind of a royal show this week. You know, but if you do have children who are you know, under the age of 21, Alex will have information for you as well. So it's going to be good. I'm actually just looking at Harry's chart right now. Harry is a Virgo, and so you know, he will be taking everything that's happening quite seriously at the moment. You know, all this stuff that's going on for him right now is going to be hitting him hard, and in fact there are some very interesting aspects going on to do with the fact that, you know, Harry has grown up in a fishbowl. His mum obviously was killed in a terrible, tragic car accident, and there are actually similarities happening here, which, you know, in fact, Alex was telling me about, because she'd been dissecting all the charts, and she was saying there are similarities, and she's written a post about it, about what happened when Princess Diana died, and now the date of this interview with Oprah Winfrey, and she was kind of saying, you know, all this before we got sort of the little snippets and leaks we've been getting from the interview with Harry and Meghan, which has been about the fact that he said he doesn't want history to repeat itself. So it's kind of really interesting that he's saying that. You know, and Alex is seeing in the chart that history, you know, kind of could repeat itself right now, but he doesn't want it to. So in some ways, he seems to have headed any traumas off at the pass. So we are going to be looking at that. I also want to tell you, this week is a new moon week. We'll be getting the new moon on, I believe, March the 13th, which is kind of exciting. It's going to be a new moon in the sign of Pisces and taking place in the same place of the skies as Venus and Neptune. So it's kind of got a very romantic feel to it. If you haven't already, oh, and by the way, the new moon is making a harmonious alignment called a sextile to Pluto, which is the planet of transformation. So, you know, there's a few things which could turn around this week. You know, maybe situations that haven't been feeling too good could start to feel a little bit better, for one thing, which is really nice. If you don't know, I am doing a free 7-day Moonology Manifesting Challenge, which started yesterday. So if you sign up now, it's free. If you sign up now, you can watch yesterday's video, you can watch today's video, and you'll be all caught up. Yesterday, what we did is we did all this energy clearing and emotional blockage clearing, because that's what you need to do when you're doing moon magic, as you'll see when you watch the video. We've got worksheets, we've got an amazing group of people. There are little challenges to do, and it's definitely not too late to sign up. If you have missed it, I've got someone here on Facebook who's saying, oh no, I think she's mean. Oh no, I missed the start of the challenge. Don't worry, it's fine. We have 7 days in the lead up to the new moon when we're all going to get together and do our wishes together, and it's going to be a really nice new moon. The reason why I did the moon manifesting, the Moonology Manifesting Challenge now, is because it's such a nice new moon, and I really wanted to tap into that so that when we are all making our wishes together, we've got a really kind of friendly new moon to do it with. So if you would like to sign up, please go to moonmessages.com/MMC, which stands for Moonology Manifesting Challenge. Or if you're watching on Facebook, there is a link above. I'm seeing someone saying very stridently, your admin don't approve Facebook requests. We do, but you have to have all the information in there. If you don't have all the information in there, we can't approve your requests, because we need to know who we've got in the group. People are saying they loved yesterday's challenge and today was more difficult. That's interesting, because I thought yesterday's was more difficult. Yesterday we did a lot of energy clearing, and today what we did was we started to think about what we actually want to manifest. So as I said, if you haven't signed up yet, it's absolutely not too late. Just do it now. Don't let it get any later. You'll miss out. moonmessages.com/MMC. moonmessages.com/MMC. People are saying they're loving the challenge. I'm loving the challenge too. I'm glad people are loving the challenge. So there we are. It's kind of going to be an interesting week, but it's already been an interesting week. And we have the amazing astrologer, Alex Trenoweth, on the line. And we're going to talk about, let's first of all talk a little bit about Harry and Meghan, and the fact that they're talking to Oprah. And then let's talk about how this actually relates to Harry as a 12-year-old, because that is kind of Alex's speciality, adolescence astrology. So are you there, Alex? Can I wind you up and say, hey, just talk, baby?
Well, on the topic of Harry, I mean, I was, you know, I don't look at the royal charts all the time, so I miss things. But what I noticed yesterday was it's 2 Jupiter returns since the death of Princess Diana. Almost exactly. And
2 Jupiter returns. That means, for people who don't know, just explain, that means Jupiter's come back to the place that it was since he was born twice, because that happens about once every 2 years. So it's actually been, wow, nearly a quarter of a century since Diana died. Amazing.
Yes, so that's 2 Jupiter returns. And Harry had just had his first Jupiter return the year before his mother died. And this is, that stage of life between 12 and about 16 is a really important stage in life, because this is when all the brain development is going on. And
Alex,
so,
can you just talk, darling, can you just talk more into your phone or a little bit louder, because people are having trouble hearing you?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Harry had just had his very first Jupiter return when his mother died. And he was entering adolescence, and this is a time when it's not just the physical body that is changing, but it's also the emotional nature of the person, the social networks that the person is creating, and most importantly, all the brain development is happening. And so, if we wonder why Harry is kind of so concerned about what has happened to his mother might happen to his wife, I mean, we only need to look at this, because it's kind of like a bit like a stuck record for him. And William had it too, but not quite as bad as Harry. I mean, William stayed within the royal family, but Harry has now left. And so I was just thinking that this shows.
Oh, I've lost her. Hang on.
Issues. The first thing I'll do is I'll go back to the stage of their life and see, what was going on, that they needed to turn to whatever substance or whatever habit they created to cope with what's happening with them at the moment. So it's an incredibly powerful time he went through, and it seems to be repeating itself, which is why he needed to speak to Oprah.
Yeah. So the weird thing is that obviously, for people who don't know, Jupiter is the lucky planet. Okay, it's the planet of good fortune. So we would expect, him to be having a good time as a 12-year-old. And of course, he probably had the worst time in his life. How do we account for that?
Well, okay, so transits, which is what we're talking about, they are things that the universe brings to us to cope with. I mean, so you're absolutely right. Why would this horrible tragedy befall him? Then there's other astrological reasons why. But the Jupiter return is kind of like a marker in your path of life. And you'll keep coming back to that marker with these Jupiter returns. So although it's not his actual Jupiter return was probably, turbulent as well, because his parents were going through a divorce and different things were happening that are quite unpleasant for teenagers anyway. But, not everyone who has a Jupiter return will suffer the loss of a mother, of course, but this is just, unfortunately, the very unlucky hand that Harry was handed. And as I said, there's other reasons why this tragedy happened, and that we can explain astrologically, but I'm just talking about, this important stage of development that all 12-year-olds go through.
Yeah, so all 12-year-olds have a Jupiter return. Jupiter takes about 12 years to go around the chart, so you always get your Jupiter return around the age of 12, like you always get your Saturn return around the age of 29. Now, one thing, if somebody's listening to this and they think back to what happened to them when they were 12, does it mean it's going to repeat when they're 24 or they're 48 or they're 36 or any of those divisible by 12 ages? Or is it always going to have a different flavour depending the other transits going on?
Well, yes, it depends on the other transits going on, but we are always learning and growing and developing. And Jupiter is, along with Saturn, is one of those planets that help us to grow and develop. So he's learning lessons on how to deal with the things that happened to him at the age of 12. And yes, I'm actually kind of glad that Harry is standing up for himself, and he's not just being this passive person that's letting things happen or putting his family in danger. He's actually saying, look, this is the situation I find myself in, and he's explaining what's going on. So he's actually standing up for himself, which I think is, quite a powerful thing that he's doing. It's causing an awful lot of uproar too, but, I'm happy for Harry. He's found his personal power.
Yeah, exactly. And also, not to be too simplistic, but many Virgos, they are so much about service. As he's, reiterated, I'm still all about service. But they're not always going to be the person who's going to stand up center stage and say, hey, world, look at me. Listen while I tell you my stuff. They're not that sign, although Meghan Markle's a Leo, who is much more likely to do that, I suppose. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as a Leo, she does have a lot more of a need to be center stage. Now, her moon, let me get this right, her moon in Libra is conjunct the Pluto of Wallace Simpson, who was the last American divorcee in the royal family who caused a crisis back in 1936. So I find it interesting these two women have this connection.
Yeah.
And, they're really, turning things upside down.
Yeah, exactly. And what else is interesting is that, Oprah is an Aquarius, where we've also got all this big action. And, this is probably the biggest, the most publicity, let's put it like that Oprah's had for decades. This has literally put her back on the front page.
Yes, indeed. Oprah has Jupiter in Gemini. And as a child, she was known as the preacher for her ability to recite Bible verses. And I think all during her long career in broadcasting, she's allowed people to come onto her show and tell their stories, which is, very much a Gemini thing to do. So, yeah, you're absolutely correct. It's so interesting that the royal couple was given this platform to speak.
Yeah, and of course Aquarius is going to be right opposite Meghan's sun, S-U-N. So, that's not going to be a walk in the park either.
Yeah, she's had a hard time, for the past few years.
Yeah.
And, let's just hope that, the pregnancy goes well and there's not too much stress on her during this time. But you kind of know there is going to be stress on her because it's a big thing that they're doing.
Yeah, just looking at Meghan's sun, her sun is at 12 Leo, and right now today Saturn is at 9 Leo. So she's under pressure. I don't think she's going to get through this quite the way she wants to, although Saturn also being the Lord of Karma, maybe this is karma playing out for her and she's getting to actually defend herself after, a couple of years of being told to shut up. She has had Jupiter opposite her sun as well, so it all makes sense. So, Alex, just let's get off the royals for a minute and on to adolescence, because this is actually one of Alex's main special subjects. Actually, Alex, you did an amazing interview a few weeks ago with Stormy Grace. Is that her name, Stormy Grace?
That's it. Yep.
Yeah. So we were
on fire so much, my glasses.
You're on fire to the point where I was actually thinking I need to get a transcript of this interview, and then I was thinking it's probably all in your book, Astrology in Adolescence or Growing Pains. But so what got you interested in working with teenagers? Because, kids and teenagers, because normally people run a mile from teenagers and children. But can I just say, before you answer that, Alex has some of the most amazing insights to share about how you can understand your child better, whether they are a babe in arms and pre-verbal, they can't express anything, or they're going through the 2 years, or they're 7 or 12 or, whatever they are, 14, 18. These are all key points. Explain, Alex, to those people who don't understand how all kids, as they grow up, they all go through the same basic transits, regardless of their star sign, their birth date. There are these big things that happen, right?
That's correct. So we were talking about the cycle of Jupiter. And I think if you break down that cycle and think of it as like seasons, so every 3 years there's a different season. So, in infancy, 0 to 3, there's the Jupiter square that's developing there. And
what does a Jupiter square do for a 3-year-old?
Well, at this stage, a child is learning how to walk and how to communicate more clearly.
So how to expand their life.
Yes, and parents don't have to have all the equipment that they used to have, the playpens, the nappies, all those sort of things. So actually the child and the parents are freer to explore the world around them. Then at 6 is when children are usually settled in a school. I know Steiner schools and Montessori schools are different, but in a regular comprehensive school, children are learning how to read and write, socialize. At 9 is another Jupiter square, and that's when children are starting to distinguish between real fears and like the boogeyman under the bed. So they're not afraid of the boogeyman under the bed. They're afraid of things like terrorism or their parents splitting up or death or something like that. They're understanding the difference between fact and fantasy. And then we talk about the Jupiter return. And Saturn also has its pattern. Instead of every 3 years, it's every 7 years. So Saturn rules the hard parts of the body, the teeth, the eyes, the hair, the skin, bones. And at 7 is when children lose their milk teeth, usually the front teeth. So that's how you tell a 7-year-old. At 14...
can we, before we just rush over that, interesting regarding 7 years old, Saturn, losing your teeth. Because the thing I remember for when Louis was 7 was I had looked it up and it said it's the age of reason. And it's so interesting that, so you're getting your first Saturn square Saturn, basically. And, you know, Saturn, amongst Saturn's many qualities, it's the planet of reason. And so at the age of 7, not only do your teeth fall out, which is such a Saturnian thing, because it shows that you're getting older. Like once you've lost your teeth, you know, before too long you'll have your grown-up teeth and you'll be an adult sort of thing. So it all ties in so perfectly. And the other thing with turning 7 and the age of reason and losing your teeth is that I really love, which you may not even know this one. You know, Rudolf Steiner, very, very famous sort of philosopher guy, he said children should not learn to read until their first milk teeth fall out. So I don't know if he was probably into astrology, so he may have been looking at the first Saturn square. And Saturn is, you know, about schools and you know, discipline. But isn't it fascinating how it all matches?
It is. And the other thing about the Saturn square that I just thought of when you were talking is children learn how to tell time.
Yes.
And you don't have to say to them, we're going to go out at lunchtime. You can say we're going to go out at 12:30, and the child will understand what that means and how to read a clock.
Yes.
And Saturn, of course, rules time as well.
Yes. So then at 14, which is where my son is at, that's going to be about the Saturn half return sort of thing, is it? What do we call it? The Saturn opposition.
Yes. Now that is when we're expecting children to step up to more responsibility. And one of the things we do here in England is we begin the exam process. And children choose the subjects they want to study, and they have to do coursework. They'll be expected to do some sort of work experience in this year. And they're having to, you know, think about what they want to do with the rest of their lives, the future, their careers, which is a very Saturn thing to do. So it's a lot of decision making that they have to do, and some children feel a lot of pressure. And I know with lockdown, everything's kind of messed up with the educational system. But when I was teaching, and students would complain to me about having to take exams, I'd say to them, "Well, I kind of hate to tell you this, but you're going to be examined for the rest of your life. You know, be it by your banker or your doctor or your dentist, you're going to have some sort of examination process in some way, and you can't avoid it. So you might as well, you know, take your first exams in a supportive environment, see what it's like, see what you can do, push yourself, see what discipline can do for you. And then when you get those exam results, you can feel a real sense of achievement."
Yes, and also the thing is, because Saturn is about learning and, you know, is about getting disciplined, it's like learning a new discipline at school that's going to stand you in good stead for the rest of your life. I mean, I know Jupiter's really more about teachers and teaching, but there is something about Saturn that has a real learning thing to it, doesn't it?
It does. And I tell all parents and teachers that they need to understand their Saturn. Because if they don't understand their Saturn, the children that they teach or the children they live with will understand that Saturn. And they'll find your weak points, and they'll provoke you, and they'll wind you up. But if you understand your Saturn, if you find your grounding, you can, you know, discipline the child in the correct way without getting, you know, too wound up yourself. And you just got to find your center, because children, as you were saying earlier, can be extremely difficult, especially teenagers, because they're going this very difficult time. The brain is rewiring itself. They are not independent enough to take care of themselves because they can't work to earn money. So they're still dependent on their parents. For the parents, There's usually some sort of separation anxiety as well as for the children, knowing that their child is growing up and growing away from them. Because all children, or say most children, will find their way to be independent from their parents. And this adolescent stage is, can be a very stressful time.
Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, though, it's what you want, isn't it? So, Alex, I'm going to have to cut you off there because we've actually about to run out of time, and I just want to make sure that people know where to find you. So, Alex, her name is Alex Trenoweth, because people are asking me on Facebook, what is your name? Alex Trenoweth. And Alex has actually created something you can download, which I've made a short link for. If you go to moonmessages.com/Alex, it'll take you to a page where you can sign up for her free article, Getting Your Child to Reach for the Stars, okay? Getting Your Child to Reach for the Stars. So it's all about everything she's talking about. Plus, Alex also has a fantastic book called Growing Pains that I'd highly recommend. I'll talk more about this on the other side of the break, but Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Yasmin. Good to talk to you.
Just stay on the line, Alex. Alex?
Yep.
Hi, darling. That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering, so on that link that you sent me, there's nowhere to actually put your name down.
What will happen is there will be a pop-up that comes up, so they just fill it in, and then I can see it, and I'll have to just individually send them out.
Oh, okay, great. Well, I feel like we gave...
Subscribe to my website.
Okay, I feel like we gave people a really good taste of it. And if they go to that page, they'll see your Growing Pains Astrology for Raising Healthy Children. I mean, I feel like we could talk a little bit more. Do you want to just stay on for another 10 minutes on the other side of the break?
Yeah, sure.
What should we discuss then? What about the last Saturn square before the Saturn return? That could be interesting.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay. How are you anyway?
Yeah, I'm good. Just been really, really busy. So I just put a really short link on my website to the subscription thing. I'll sort it out when we're done talking. So it's just really quite short, but I'll sort it out. I just can't write and talk at the same time.
That's all right. Yeah, okay. All right. Just give me 1 second. I'm just going to quickly look something up.
You got 1 more minute.
All right, we'll be back on in a minute,
Question or
Alex.
Comment 816-251-3555.
That's 816-251-3555.
Find out what's happening in the skies. Welcome back to Astrology with Yasmin.
Hey everybody, it's Yasmin back here on the other side of the break. Sorry about for this on the Facebook people. I kind of got lost in something I had to try and get done. So I was having such a good time talking to Alex Trenowitz about astrology in adolescence that I've asked her to stay on just a little bit longer. So Alex, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Hello, thank you. So we were going to say, we kind of talked about, let's just talk a tiny bit more about the Saturn opposition because of my 14-year-old boy. So what's your best advice to parents of 14-year-olds at the moment because of the fact that they're all going through their Saturn opposition? Do tell.
Well, I mean, I think the most important thing for children of any age is to have structure and clear guidelines and rules. But obviously at 14 and older, they're going to want to, the way they socialize with their peers will change. And they might be getting their first boyfriend or girlfriend. They might lose contact with a good friend. So a lot of social things are changing. And one of the things I've said for quite a long time is how social media has changed the way our teenagers are interacting with each other. But generally speaking, 14-year-olds need clear guidelines. They need parents who are clearly rooted in their own Saturn so that if a child breaks the rules, say curfew or whatever, there are consequences. And the child understands there's no getting around the consequences. So I think that's really important. And,
right. Because, Saturn lays down the law, and I guess the parents have to as well.
That's right. The parents are the Saturn for the child. And, it isn't easy raising teenagers because there's so many things that they think they know, and they will realize later in life that they didn't know at all. But, that's generally speaking what I would say to parents. Find your Saturn, stick to it. Know your partner's Saturn as well, so that you can work with that Saturn, because that's the other side of the story. It's a bit more complicated. That you and your partner understand each other, what your expectations are for your child.
Yeah.
So astrology makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, astrology makes it much easier. And for those of you who are just tuning in, I'm talking to Alex Trenowitz, who is an expert astrologer and also a teacher and a mother of, I think, is it 3 boys? So
2 boys and a girl.
2 boys and a girl. So she knows her stuff. She knows her astrology backwards. Plus she is a teacher. Plus she's a 3-time parent of grown children. She's managed to grow them to the point where they've been able to up and leave home. So, she really knows what she's talking about. Actually, a few things to ask you. I think the first thing I want to ask you is about teenage rebellion, but then let's talk about the chart that you've written as well for teenagers. So with rebellion, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who's also got a 14-year-old boy, and we were talking about the fact that they actually need to rebel, and we shouldn't kind of sort of make it, the conversation was, should we say, if we found out that they were having a sneaky beer or something, would we completely lose our cool, or would we try and, be cool? And my friend was saying, and I thought it was a really good point, she said children need to rebel in their teenage years, so we need to kind of give them something to rebel about. And if we say, oh no, a little bit of beer's okay, maybe they'll have to up the ante because they've got this need to rebel. And obviously with the planet Uranus, it's all about rebellion, and Uranus, just like Jupiter and Saturn, also has cycles. So what's going on there? Let's stay focused on adolescence and teenage years. What about rebelling and Uranus and beer?
Okay, so at 13, there's 2 things that are happening, and it's a different aspect. Usually I use squares, but this time I'm using another aspect called a sextile, which is a little bit easier. And what's happening at 13 is Uranus, the planet of rebellion, is in a sextile position to where it was when the person was born, which means that the rebellion energy is really flowing very freely. And at the same time, Jupiter is also in a sextile position, which means that the expansion and all the confidence that we associate with Jupiter is kicking off with that Uranus. Now, I know from looking at interviewing other teachers and my experiences in a classroom in September, the 13-year-olds are the class, and I'm sorry to say this, teenagers, I really do love you, but it's the class that nobody wants to teach because of the rebellion and the defiance. And I know from thousands of behavior reports that that particular age group is more often in trouble for defiance. So that's what's happening, and it's magnified by Jupiter. So while it's very natural to be rebellious, what parents need to do is to encourage their children to consider the consequences, think ahead. Now, the brain development is still going on, and we know that adolescents have very poor decision-making skills because that brain hasn't finished developing. The other thing about children being able to sneak off and get a beer. So let's just use that as a scenario.
Yeah.
What happens when they get away with something is they get a little kick, a little thrill, and a little kick of dopamine, which is where addictions can come in because they need that thrill of getting away with something.
And also, you know, Uranus has a kind of a thrill aspect, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that's, the process I'm describing too. And so, while I think it's perfectly fine for a child if they want to try alcohol with their parents or whatever, because most kids don't like the taste.
Yeah.
Right? I remember I used to have to mix ice cream with beer in order to be able to tolerate it. The taste is not pleasant.
Yeah.
And, the other thing I heard some parents say is, if they come home drunk, I'm going to give them some more so that they get a hangover. So they realize, okay, this is the price you pay.
Yeah.
Same as smoking. Parents say that, kid gets caught smoking, well, they put them in a closet and give them a pack of cigarettes until they get sick.
Don't come out till you smoke more. But so what do you think, in the light of Uranus, okay, like purely from an astrological point of view, do you think children need something to rebel against? Does Uranus, so then if we say, oh, darling, here's a bottle of beer, you're getting to be big. Does that take the thrill out and we need to not do that? What do you reckon, as a parent and an astrologer?
That's a hard call, and it's going to be, a very personal one, to each parent. But personally, I wouldn't want to do that. And I want to make sure that I knew where my children were going, that they weren't going to have access to alcohol. I mean, I think it's a natural part of the teenage life that they're going to find themselves in situations where they're unsupervised and the temptation's there. But, like I say, when you have a clear rule and you say, okay, I'm giving you this trust that, you're going to go to this party and if there's alcohol there, if you're going to try it, you're going to be sensible. And you're not going to come home drunk and you're not going to cause fights or any sort of other problems. And if the child can abide by those kind of guidelines, then
I suppose the point I'm trying to make is because of Uranus triggering them at 13, and do they, if you make it too easy for them and it's not a rebellion for them to drink beer, are they just going to go and smoke weed because, mum and dad don't care about beer, so I need to rebel in some way, so now I'm going to go and smoke some weed? Do you think that there is this need to break the rules that comes then? So my friend was saying you kind of need to come down on them like a ton of bricks for the minor things, otherwise it's going to escalate because they'll say, I didn't manage to rebel there, so let me try this. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I agree with your friend.
Right, interesting.
It is true that they will find a way to rebel, but isn't it better that they rebel, for example, with putting their energy into the debate club, for an example?
Yes, but that's not very rebellious.
Well, it gives them a chance to express their opinion, and it's just an example that comes off the top of my head. But, they will find ways of rebelling, but that's down to the parent to decide what's okay and what's not okay.
Yeah.
To some parents, having a beer or smoking weed might be okay. To another parent, coloring your hair purple is going to be a real problem.
Right, interesting.
As a parent, you set the guidelines. It's your decision. It's not my decision as an astrologer. It's the parent's decision, what they find tolerable. And if you're in a relationship with somebody else, what that person finds tolerable as well, and how you can work together. Because you have to have, if you are in this relationship with a parental relationship, you have to have that united front.
Right.
Because if you're not, okay, first of all, you got a problem with your spouse, and then you also together have a problem with your kid. So you have to understand each other's Saturns as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And stand together.
So, Alex, tell us about the chart program that you've written for any parents out there who want to get like an instant analysis of their child's, growing years and growing pains.
Yes, this computer-generated report came about because teenagers are often the people who need the most help astrologically. But owing to safeguarding and child protection guidelines, an astrologer should not have an unsupervised child in their consulting offices or on Zoom or whatever without a parent being there. And then people would ask, okay, well, what about if a really difficult situation comes up and a child wants to disclose something? Then the astrologer has to know what to do. An underage girl might confess that she's going to have a baby. A boy might confess something else. So the astrologer has to know what to do. If they don't do anything, they could be in trouble and put their practices in jeopardy. And so I wrote this report as kind of a compromise, a way for parents to understand their child. And it's designed so that parent and child can look at the chart together. And they can see the pattern that we were talking about, the Jupiter and Saturn patterns that were going on. And they can find compromises in how they get along, and what's allowed. It opens up the lines of communication, and it just helps that relationship when it's at its trickiest stage. Because, as I said, adolescents need the most help, and we're just likely to throw our hands up in the air and say, "Oh, they'll grow out of it." And then, in the meantime, all these terrible habits are developed, and all these relationship difficulties are arising. So, it's a 16-page report, 16 to 18 pages. It's got original artwork in it. And it comes with the actual chart of the child. And all the parent does is come to my website and go to the adolescent report section and fill it in. It's 20 pounds. And
it's 20 pounds, is it? Because I'm looking at one that's 249 pounds.
Oh, that's for a family consultation.
Oh, okay. So how do we find the 20-pound one? Is it individual astrology reports for adolescents?
Yes, that is the one.
Okay, so it's on special from 25 to 20.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm going to buy one of those because I'm curious as well. All right, so Alex, tell people where they can find you.
You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all creatively called Alex Trenois.
Okay.
I don't use a handle. I use my real name. So you can find me there on my website as well. Lots of different ways of contacting me through my website, also called alextrenois.com.
Trenois being Trenoweth. So you can find Alex everywhere. She's very, very well respected in the astrological community. She knows what she's talking about, and there are not that many people I would trust with adolescent astrology, because it's such a sensitive time in a child's life. But I truly believe that you can trust Alex with your child's astrology. So I can hardly give a higher recommendation from that, given that I'm such an insanely passionate parent. Alex, just before you go, what do you think about the current astrological conditions, and including upcoming eclipses in Gemini and Sag, and Saturn and Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius? What do you think about the prospects of the kids going back to school at this point? Do you think the eclipses are going to just make it all insane? Being in Gemini and Sag, we've got lockdown planet, Saturn in humanity planet, Aquarius. What do you think?
Well, I've been saying for years that the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, which took place at 0 degrees Aquarius in December, that we need to change the way we educate our children, because the educational system as we knew it had real limitations. And I think Aquarius is also due to technology and the internet, and I think that
school online.
Difficult to adjust to. Yes, we're finding it very difficult to adjust to lockdown learning, but it's only because it's new. We will find a way to incorporate it into our lives, to make it a better system, a more fair system. I'm loving it that children, I know children who are learning Japanese. Japanese is not on the English curriculum. So they're finding their own interests and actually reaching beyond what the traditional schools have been offering. And teachers have been saying for years, too, that, we're not really teaching kids what they need to know for the future. For the kids, the technology is the future. Well, I can barely manage my mobile phone, let alone do what some of the kids are doing. Couldn't even manage a landing page today. So, I think that this is all about, kids getting used to using the internet, learning to find those boundaries that we were just talking about, and making the most out of a really difficult situation.
Yeah.
And, parents, I know I'm full of sympathy for for homeschool, and I know that it's been a difficult time, but you need to keep your kids safe, and I think that that the kids going back to school was what kicked off the second wave.
Yeah, well, now it's going to kick off the third wave, presumably.
It sure is, and so it's just strange new worlds, and we all have to get used to it. And
yeah.
From what I've been reading, we're going to have to get used to these viruses and learn to live with the excessive hand washing, the social distancing, unless we want to be vaccinated for more and more things.
Yeah.
In the future.
And
so
Saturn's going to stay in Aquarius for another year or two, so it's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Got a couple more years.
Yeah. Sorry.
We got a couple more years.
Couple more years of the lockdown planet in the sign of humanity. I mean, it's pretty stark astrology when you think about it. So, Alex, I just want to give you some instant feedback. I've been broadcasting this on Facebook as well as unityonlineradio.org, and you are getting so many compliments of people saying this is fascinating, amazing information for parents. I even had one person saying, I'm not even a parent yet. Now I'm going to be forewarned and forearmed. So that's great.
Absolutely. I just want to come back to something too.
Yeah.
I didn't know all this research when I was a parent, and I wish I did. And parents tell me this too, because being a parent is tough. It's relentless, and there's lots of mistakes made, and you beat yourself up over them. But astrology can really help you streamline, be more focused on your Saturn, and be a stronger authority figure, which is what your teenager needs. Yeah.
So honestly, I would suggest go to Alex's website, alextrenoweth.com, TRENOWETH, alextrenoweth.co.uk, I should say. And you can pick up her individual astrology reports for adolescents there for just £20, alextrenoweth.co.uk. And she's amazing. And I'd also highly recommend that someone's put the link on Facebook, thank you. I'd also highly recommend that you listen to Alex's chat with Grace Stormy, is it? Stormy Grace? Grace Stormy? I'm not really sure. Stormy Grace. Because that was really fascinating and a little bit more in depth than we're doing now, a little bit more for people who understand a bit of astrology. But just that conversation you were on, it was amazing as well. So, all right. Thank you so much, Alex, for coming on. And I'll see you in the funny pages.
Yes.
I'll see you soon. All right. Lots of love.
And thank you for the listeners. Lots of love to you too.
I'm sure they say thank you to you. So that was Alex Trenoweth of alextrenoweth.co.uk. So if you want to know more, go there. She's also got a book called Growing Pains, which is astrology for adolescents, which I should have mentioned as well. Yes, people on Facebook are putting the link. Thank you. She's great. She's amazing. She knows her stuff. So we now have about 8 minutes left, which means I think I can take one call, and we do have a couple of people who've patiently waited So let's go to Stacey on line 1. And Annette, if I don't get to you, I will give you a card. All right, so Stacey on line 1, are you there?
Hello.
Hello, Stacey. Thank you for waiting patiently. I'm sorry, I got so carried away talking to Alex because it was so, interesting that I kind of almost forgot to take calls. But how are you? What's happening? I'm doing your chart right now.
Yeah, that call was fantastic.
Yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it?
It was. I don't have kids, but it was very interesting.
Right, even interesting when you don't have kids. Well, that's a pretty big compliment. All right, so Stacey, you are a Libran, but you're not your average run-of-the-mill Libran because your sun is conjunct Pluto. So you're a very powerful and passionate Libran. And you've also got Mars in Libra as well. So you're a triple Libran, but you're also a quadruple Scorpio with your moon in Aries. So what is going on for you right now? What do you need to know?
Honestly, I didn't really have anything specific. I mean, I'm dealing with a lot of financial issues right now.
Okay.
So, I don't know.
All right. Well, what about if I do you a card? Okay. When it comes to money, you need to step out of your comfort zone, young lady. What does that say to you, stepping out of your comfort zone?
That says a lot, actually. My husband and pretty much everybody around me keeps saying that because I keep second guessing that if I know enough in order to step into a different realm. Because I'm a graphic designer by trade. I like the health and wellness kind of field. So
right.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, that is very interesting. All right. So there you are. Step out of your comfort zone and the money shall be there waiting for you, Stacey.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. All right, let me see if I can fit Annette in as well now. Annette, are you there on line 2? Hello, Annette.
Hello.
Hi, Annette. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Are you calling from England?
I'm in Scotland.
You're in Scotland. Blimey, this will be costing you a pretty penny.
I'm actually got a Skype subscription. It's like £3 a month.
Ah, very handy, because the Scots are supposed to be very clever with money.
I'm actually born in Latvia. I've lived in Scotland now for 9-10 years.
And I have to say, you've got the accent.
I do, yeah.
So, Annette, we don't have much time. Tell me what you would like to know. Shall I tell you your chart quickly? Have you had it done before?
I haven't had it done before, no.
All right, so you are Cancerian with Aquarius rising and a Pisces moon.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you cheering or is that your child in the background?
That's my baby.
Oh, you just had a baby, how nice. Okay, so what would you like to know? Because I've drawn you a card. Would you like to know about the card?
Yes, please, but I just have a question.
Okay, tell me your question.
I'm looking to start my business, hopefully when the new moon comes in, and I was just kind of wondering if, like, the stars are any good.
Okay, so interesting. When the new moon takes place in a couple of days on the 13th of March, it's actually going to be in your second house of cash, and it's a really nice new moon. So I would say 13th of March onwards is a really nice time for you to be starting your business. You'll actually, normally when people want to know about starting their business, it's far more complicated. You have to set up all kinds of charts. But I can tell you, just looking at your chart right now, anytime after sort of Saturday morning onwards, it's going to be nice for you to start your chart and start your business. What's your business?
Well, I actually done the Moonology certification.
Ah!
Moonology as well, because I haven't quite delved into the more complex parts of like aspects and things like that. I understand I want to know everything all the time anyway, like you want to know everything when you need to. So I thought I'll just start doing something on the new moon.
Excellent.
Because I have so many ideas that I want to get out there. I'm so excited.
Right, that's brilliant. Well, yeah, look, this new moon is a really good one, and it's in your second house, which, as you know, as a good Moonology student, Annette has done my Moonology certification course, I presume. It's in your second house, which is cash, property, and possession. So there's a new start coming for you financially this month, and it's a really good time to be putting, your new business into play. So I did draw you a card, so let me just tell you what you got, just in case it's relevant, because it's probably going to be. You got the South Node with the advice, don't let your past hold you back, okay? So whatever's happened in your past, as you now move into your new present and future, don't let your past hold you back, okay? Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, well, on that note, Annette, I've got something like 10 seconds left. So I'm going to wish everyone a beautiful week. Remember to join me on the Moonology Manifesting Challenge. It's free. moonmessages.com/MMC, and I'll see you next week.
All right.
Thank you so much, Louie. Have a beautiful week.
You too.
Bye. So there we go, guys. And now I have to go off and do a podcast. See you in the morning, everybody. Lots of love.